on the top of page Lamed Bais 30. We had a statement from Rabbi Yehuda Marav.
Going?
Rabbi Yehuda, the student of Rav, says that if someone shechs in 2 or 3 places on the neck of the animal, it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda comes to Shmuel after Rav passed away. He went to study by Shmuel, and Shmuel says it's not kosher because be'inon shchita meferas, it needs to be a discernible incision, a cut. And what would happen is, or this is the way we learned according to Rashi, is that you cut here, you cut here, you cut in the middle. So every time it spreads open. If there was just one cut, it would open it up. But the fact that it's cut on the sides means that the sides are closing it a little bit because those incisions on the side cause it to snap to the center, which the main cut is not as open as it would have been if there would have been only one cut. So then we quoted a Mishnah rather, that 2 people are holding a knife and they shech. So it's kosher. We didn't know how to learn that Mishnah though. Does that mean 2 people holding a knife means 2 people holding one knife? Or do we say that's 2 people holding each independent knives separately? But whatever the case is, it's kosher. So we explained that it was just one knife. It was just one knife, so that way it won't be a question on this discussion. We have another question on this. Masav Ravav, and it's the top line if you're in the Hebrew. Shachar esaveshet lamata v'sakana l'mayla. He does a shchita, and he slaughters the esophagus lower down, and the trachea he severs higher up. Now, what's happening here is that he's using one knife, but what we're imagining is that he's cutting and then he's going down, or somehow the opposite, and it's not going to open up the same way that Shmuel is requiring. Shmuel wants it just to be cut, and it falls to 2 sides. Here, because it's what would you call that? Like a zigzag. So it's not going to do that same opening. Oh yes, saveshet l'mayla v'sakana l'mata, or he does it the opposite. He does the esophagus above and the trachea cuts below. Shchitas kshera. It's kosher. It's a problem on Shmuel. Amai, why is it kosher? V'aleka shchita meferas. It doesn't have a clear cut, incision. So humaysiv la v'humafarak la. Rav Avin asked the question. He also answers it. He says, "B'shchita asiyah kakolmas." It's talking about the shchita. It's not that it was a zigzag. It was just on a regular slant. No, a kolmas.
Just an angle.
It's just on an angle. So yes, one of them was on top and one of them is below, but it was on a nice angle. And when it opens up, it's still opened up in a clear way. So it's not a kasha on Shmuel. Ahutura. There was this ox that was slaughtered in 2 or 3 places. Al Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta entered. I forget if Marta was Shmuel's daughter. So anyway, he came in and shakal mishufri, and he took from the best of the best. The word al means enter. Remember as a kid, I remember hearing a drasha, someone said, he quotes the Targum on this week's Parsha, V'ilin shmas b'nei Yisrael da'alu l'Mitzrayim. These are the names of the Jews, and he translated da'alu, that went up to Mitzrayim, and he had this whole speech on why is it that went up to Mitzrayim? It should be they went down to Mitzrayim. And he gave a Hasidic interpretation, that even though it's going down to Mitzrayim, but really because of the sparks that they were going to take out. Then afterwards I started to use dictionaries more often and see that alu just means entered. It doesn't mean, in Hebrew al means to go up, but in Aramaic it just means to enter. So So Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel just took from the Shufri. It was a nice speech, though. Amalei Rab Zera.
Obviously stuck at the stage.
Amalei Rab Zera. Rab Zera says to him, to Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marta, Limadatanu Rabbeinu. Our master has taught us. That's Rashi's interpretation. Mishnah Seinu b'shnei sakinim ubeis b'nei adam. That the Mishnah that we mentioned before, that when you have two people with a knife slaughtering, that's talking about two knives, because you see that it's kosher. In other words, that Mishnah, we could have learned that it's talking about two people with one knife. That's the way we would have to learn it if it wasn't kosher to have two incisions. So, but here we see that what the pshat is, that it's two knives. Taisus quotes a little different. He says that our master taught us that the Mishnah was talking about two people with one knife, and now we see that you're eating from this. You're changing your mind. So whatever the case is, he ate from it, and it was, even though there were several incisions, which means that should be kosher. Okay.
So he argues on Shmuel.
So he argues on Shmuel, right?
His great grandson.
If Martha was the daughter, I forget who it was. Something. Well, Shmuel's daughters were taken captive, I think, so they weren't called by the fathers. No, that's not it. No, that's Mari Barachel. That's okay. Mixing this up.
The way he translates, Rabbi Zera is saying to him, our rabbi, you taught us.
Right. You
not
taught
that
us.
our rabbis taught us, but
You taught us directly. Yeah, thank you. You yourself, which is Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marta, taught us. You taught us different. Either you taught us differently, according to the way Taisus quotes, or according to Rashi, that you are now teaching us this halacha. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, this is what we had before also, we had a Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Hichlet asasakin bein siman l'siman. If he puts the knife in between the two pipes, upasku just means that he shechted. It's psula. It's not valid. Tachas ha'ar, if he puts the knife under the skin, then it's ksheira. We didn't say exactly how he slaughtered it. You know, when you put it in, can I use this?
Please.
So, so when you're cutting from here, this is the neck, let's say. So there's only one way to cut because you're at the front. There's only one way to cut. When you put it in between, I have two ways now to cut. Either I'm cutting this way or I'm cutting this way, right? It's unclear which way he's cutting. It just says he puts the knife between the siman. It doesn't give me all the information right here. So, but the Gemara asks, "My kamashmalan, what's Rav needs to tell this to me?" Tanina, this is a clear Mishnah. If he puts the knife in between, under the second one, tachas hasheni is under the second one. That means he's putting the knife on this side, and he cuts. Okay, that there's only one way to cut again. It's back. Rabbi Yesheva v'Imer nevela, Rabbi Kiva v'Imer treifa. That's either a nevela or a treifa. Nevela means it's not considered a shechita at all, and a treifa would just mean it's a shechita, but it's not valid. So the question is, why does Rav need to tell me that chalada, which is when you hide the knife in the skin, underneath inside the neck, and then you do a cutting without the knife being visible? Why does Rav need to say that? I have a Mishnah that says it, that you can't insert the knife in that hidden way and then.
Because you might think, what if he used the cherif pipiyut that was a double-sided knife? It goes right in between both, and guess what? He shechs both pipes at the same time.
That's interesting.
It wouldn't go so.
You have Chullin already?
One of those Chullin days. Kishke.
I haven't thought of that.
It could be an exception.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Wow.
You're thinking this because the scalpel is sharp on both sides, right? Is it sharp?
Scalpel's only sharp on
Oh, yeah?
one side.
I saw these
But
disposable ones that these.
No, that people who shave with blades, they have double-sided blades. I
Okay.
don't shave with a blade, no.
Okay.
Or scalpel.
Okay, so the Gemara says, Ime masnisin, if we would only have our Mishnah, Hava, I would have thought, Hani mili, when do we say that, halacha mimata lamaila, because you're cutting in the wrong direction. Delay kavod kederech shchita, because you're cutting backwards. You're cutting from the inside of the neck towards the front of the neck. Aval milmaila lamata, the kavod derech shchita mashaper dami, but if you would be cutting in the other direction, in the correct direction, even though you're hiding the knife, but at least the direction. So if you're putting the knife inside, in between, you're cutting in the correct direction. Then you pull the knife out, and then you cut the front, which is all in the correct direction. So I would have thought that's good. So Kamash Malan, Rav tells me that it's not good. In other words, the Mishnah taught me this halacha, but there was one detail that I wouldn't have known from the Mishnah, and that is if I'm cutting everything in the correct direction, I wouldn't have known that that's a problem, because there were two problems in the Mishnah. I wouldn't have known if I would take away one of those problems if it would still be invalid. The two problems of the Mishnah was, first of all, you were hiding the knife. Second of all, you're cutting in the wrong direction. Let's say I'm hiding the knife, but it's in the right direction. So Rav has to tell me that that's also no good.
But Malik is technically the wrong direction. and
Correct.
it's okay.
That's an exception, right?
Well, why
Right.
can't you learn that would prove that this would also be okay?
No.
You're not doing the Malika part, but you're doing
Oh.
the Shlita part.
Because that would have to be a puncture straight in, right? You have to draw it, right?
No, I'm saying you put it
but you
in
said
under the
before you
skin.
can't learn
No, what you're
behind
asking,
yourself,
I get what
cut
you're
that
asking.
one.
You're asking that
Jab in the cut.
that we never differentiated here in the direction which one you cut first. That was never
You
an
said
issue.
you needed to
You can cut it's possible if you're able to maneuver the pipes. You are able to cut the veshet first, and that wasn't an issue. It's an interesting point.
Strong coffee.
What did you do? Swim?
Yes,
Not swim.
That's an interesting point. Maybe what the Gemara means is that even though we never claim that that's an issue, but nevertheless we wouldn't have, because we didn't state that clearly. The Rav still has to tell it to me clearly, even though you're correct that's not invalid. Cutting in the wrong direction, but because it didn't say so clearly, I could have thought that maybe that's a secondary issue. Okay, the next point is tachas ar ksheira. If you hide the knife under the skin, it's valid. Bei Rav Amri tachas ar eni edeya. Rabbi Yehuda Amarav said that it's kosher under the skin, but the yeshiva of Rav says that they don't know. So it was Rav Yehuda that claims that what Rav said, and the rest of the yeshiva doesn't know. And it's possible, there was another interpretation I saw, that maybe what the yeshiva said is that they heard from Rav that he doesn't know, which is even stronger. Not that they just never heard from Rav, but...
It says, yeah, only Bishmai.
Oh yeah,
His translation.
okay. Interesting. Iboilahu. Now they have a question. In other words, there's going to be a stringency here according to the yeshiva of Rav. Lebei Rav da Amri Tachas Areni Edeya. According to the yeshiva of Rav, that say that if it's under the skin, they don't know. Tachas Matlis Mahu. Let's say the knife is not put under the skin, but it's put under a cloth. So maybe the skin, we have to be strict. That's where Rav had the question, because that's hiding it in the animal, where the shechita is supposed to be done. But the cloth is totally outside material. Is that a problem? And if you say that that's not a problem, but what about tachas tzemer mesubach? Let's say there's the hair, the wool is all like dreadlocks. What do you call that when it's?
You say matted.
Matted. Okay, when it's matted. So what would that? Now that's attached to the animal. So now we found this middle case. Under the skin, we're going to have to be strict. Under a cloth, That's a question. And whatever we're going to say there, maybe that's going to help us out. What about under the hair, under the wool?
Well, with the summa, did we say that was not allowed?
About a blind person?
Yeah. Didn't we say he couldn't shech at the beginning?
I thought we said someone's with him. I thought that was okay. If someone was with him and told him where to shech, wasn't
If
that?
someone was not with him.
Good luck.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
bring on the knife.
Because
Yeah, but this
what's
is not the
difference
issue.
Between this and the
No,
summa?
this is not the issue. This is not a because he can't see it. One of the halachas of shechita is that the knife needs to be visible. It's not that the person needs to be able to see it. It's that the knife needs to be visible. It's the knife, not the person. So it can't, you can't insert the knife. Now, Boy Rav Papa. So this concludes with the teku. Boy Rav Papa. Rav Papa has a question. He says, Hichlid, if he hides the knife, b'miyut simanim, in a minority of the pipes, Mahu, what's the din? There's three interpretations here. Rashi interprets this that you shechted the majority. Then you take the knife out and you insert it back in behind and you cut the last part. That's not the part that's not required because you already shechted the majority. And it's not required anymore to shecht anymore. It was already kosher. But you finished it off in the way that's invalid. So you've extended the shechita. But you extended it in a way that's not acceptable. So would that be, what would be in that case?
Could ask that question on all the halachas.
Right. With Shia and all of that, that would come out. And Taisvus deals with all of that as proofs against Rashi. On the side of my Gemara, I don't know if this is, they quote from the Eretz Tzvi. Eretz Tzvi was a kosher glover Rav. He answers a lot of the questions that they had on Chassidim. But anyway, over here he says that that's an interesting point. He says that normally someone that's a nida or a zava, they're not supposed to go to the mikvah on the seventh day. They have to wait till after the seventh day, after the 7 clean days. Let's say she does go to the mikvah on the 7th day, so she would be pure once the day has started. Why? Because they say mikta seyim kukul. I say a portion of the day is considered like the whole day. That's what we say in Avelos. We always, in other things, we say mikta seyim kukul. A part of the day is considered like the day. If she would see blood later on after the mikvah, so then everything would be invalid. It would go back and it would cancel everything, right? Question is, maybe it's considered like the 8th day already because it's already finished. Why is it? Is it the 7th day or is it the 8th day? Because she already, part of the day is considered like the 7th day. So he says like this. Now, yes, usually we say that part of the day is like the day. However, if you do a maisa that ruins everything that you did, you counted 7 days. In the morning was already the 7th day. You counted 7. However, you did something that uproots that. So if you did something that uproots it, so that goes back and it takes off everything. So he says over here also, he says even though we say rubei kekulei, the majority is like the whole thing, but that's only if you don't do an action that ruins it. So here, when you went and you actually concluded the shechita, if you would have left it, it would have been fine. But because you concluded the shechita, so you made it worse by doing that. And he gives that example with the nida, with the... Anyway, I guess that was understood, that concept. Okay, we learned this according to Rashi. Tosfos doesn't accept this. Tosfos says that we're not talking about the last part of the shechita where you're doing challah. The Tosfos says we're talking about the first part. And what you're doing is the first part of the shechita you did chalad, and instead of cutting from here, you stuck the knife in the beginning, but that's not the real shechita because that's just a very small part at the beginning. Then he turns the knife around and he cuts normally. So that first part shouldn't invalidate it because where's the shechita at the end? So that's Tosfos pshat. And Tosfos has a question on Rashi based on what Rabbi Yaakov said because he quotes a Tosefta. The Tosefta says, if you shech the majority of the pipe by a bird, and then you pause, and you wait, and then you finish that last minority, he says it's fine. So if a pause is fine, so why are you asking about the chalad? And that's Tosfos kasha. And the Rosh goes through this, and he says, he's asking from a Tosefta, maybe because we don't quote that Tosefta, maybe that's not an accepted Tosefta. It has this thing with which Toseftas are acceptable. Then we have a third interpretation here. He shechts from Tosfos quotes it from Rabbi Ishia. He shechts one siman, the majority. Then he pulls the knife out, and he puts it back in, and he shechts the next siman, the majority. So there's the minority of the first siman that's blocking the second siman. So because the minority is nothing, it's not required to be slaughtered. Maybe that's not an issue. Because one of the things that we're dealing with here is that where is there a problem of chalada if I was supposed to slaughter that part? So for example, putting it under the skin, according to that first interpretation, according to Rabbi Yehuda Marav, I don't need to slaughter the skin. I can rip the skin off and slaughter the pipes. The skin is not to rip. Or maybe, no, that's how you do shechita. So maybe that is considered blocking the knife. But so here, what the way Rabbi is saying in this interpretation of Rav Papa's question is that I slaughtered the majority of the first pipe. The last part I don't need to slaughter. So I take the knife out and put it back in and slaughter the next pipe. But it's that first majority, the first pipe's minority is not really required to be slaughtered. So maybe that's not ma'akev in this. That doesn't block the knife because it's not. Okay, those were the discussion there. Now we have a new Mishnah. We've learned this Mishnah before, and we actually quoted this, that it's referring to Kodshim, if you remember. Hasheichet Beis Rashim Ke'echad, if someone slaughters two heads as one, Shchitas Ksheira, it's considered valid. The Gemara before said because it's in a Lashon Di'evid, it's valid, but not that you're allowed to. So that means that it's Kodshim where you're not supposed to do this L'chatchila. Shnayim meichzim b'sakin. Two people are holding a knife, v'sheichten, and they're shechting. Afilu echad l'mayla v'echad l'mata. Even if one's above and one's below, shchita ksheira. The shchita is valid. Is that the one that we quoted here? Beizeichzim b'sakin v'sheichten. That's what we quoted before, and it was unclear if this was talking about they're holding two knives or they're holding one knife. Hit is esareish b'vasachas. If the one swipe, he cuts off the head. Psula, that's not valid. I'm just going to explain why. Basically, it's because of drasa. It's because of chopping. Let's say he's shechting, and the hit is esreish b'vasachas, and he cuts off the head with one swipe. The difference is the last time was in a chopping motion. This is in a sliding, that he's moving it in one direction. But what it says, b'vasachas, means that he's not going back and forth. He's going in one direction. Im yesh b'sakin maleit savar, then it's ksheira. If the knife has in it, the Gemara is going to discuss the length of the knife, but if the knife would be the size of the neck of the animal, plus one more neck of the animal, so it would be double the size of the neck. That's how the Gemara is going to explain it. Then that's valid, even though you only went in one direction. Let's say he's shechting and he cuts off two heads in one go.
Stronger.
Or maybe it's a very long knife because it means that he didn't move it backwards. This is only if there was those two heads, as the Gemara is going to explain, plus the size of another head, the size of another neck. So there would be three in that case. You needed a longer knife. When do we say this? When he goes in one direction. That's when we're concerned about the length of the knife. Or he brings it and he doesn't go outward. But if he's going back and forth with the knife, I feel a kolshu, even if it's a small drop, I feel a be'izmal, even if it's with a scalpel, it's ksheira, it's valid. You know, this is a very different topic, but by a bris, they always say, we have to get a mile. What's a good mile? Someone that's fast. Oh, he's fast. So we have an assumption that when it's fast, it's less painful. Possibly. That's clearly an assumption. No, it's not necessarily so. But when you the way the surgeons cut is they cut like very carefully back and forth, right? They cut. Then no surgeon's going to go like, even if there's protection there, or guards or whatever. But they do everything is very very slow. Okay, so if someone is shechting with the ismal, with the scalpel, you can take all day. All day it's going to be kosher. Okay.
I like doctors go slow because they get paid by the hour. Lawyers.
A doctor does piecework.
Gemara asks. From where do we know this from? The question is, where do we know that you can't press on the knife, that you can't chop? No.
When we talk about this case of two people holding onto the knife, are you envisioning a long knife with two hands on it? Or are you envisioning a knife that has two handles on it, one from this side, one from that side?
Two handles.
Perfect, exactly, there you go. Yeah.
The question here is, why does the Gemara ask? Excellent. I was actually thinking that the knife would be the other way, and two people holding with the handles facing out, but okay. Okay, so I think I actually saw like a cheese knife like that or something, where I don't know if it was for two people, but there was,
It's for hard cheese.
Right. The question here, the Gemara asks, from where do we know that you can't do it in a chopping motion? Why is the Gemara asking such a question? It's halacha l'meshim misina. We should never ask it. You don't have to ask a question. From where do we know? Like you're looking for a pasuk. We said you can't chop. That's one of the 5 halachas. So Rashi before told us at the beginning of this parak, Rashi says yes, they're all halacha l'meshim misina. However, one of them is learned from a pasuk. There's 4, and he says which one is learned from a pasuk? Drasa. That the pressing of it. That's when we said all of these psukim. Shachat, the place where it bends, that's where you cut, and this. And so what's the pasuk needed for? Afterwards we say it's halacha l'meshim misina. The pasuk is telling me shlei l'shavi gistra, that you can't make it into a broken vessel. And Rashi explains that's referring to drasa. Back over here, the Gemara asks, what's the source? We're looking for a pasuk for the 5th one, or one of the 5 of these halacha l'meshim misinas, that how the laws of shechita. Amar Shmuel says to Makra, chetz shachat l'shainam. Their tongue is a sharp arrow. Mir madiber speaks trickery, or what's it? Deceit. Good, deceit. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, so what do we see from that? That is a drawn arrow, and that means that the shechting needs to be done the way the arrow is pulled back. That's how someone has to shech. The arrow, the way the bow is pulled back, that's how shechita is done. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel was taught in Yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel v'shachat. This is popular in Chassidus. Ein v'shachat ela v'mashach. What is shechita? Drawing. In Chassidus it uses to tell us that it's drawing upward. That it raises up. It's right. It's elevating the sparks. That's what shechita is. and it's also written. It says Zov Shachat, which would be like a pressed out gold. I think this was used maybe on the shields or something. There was this like a golden plate that the way it was done, it was pressed out. And it also says Chet Shachat L'Shainam. Their tongue is a drawn arrow or sharpened arrow. Mir Madiber, it speaks deceit. Why do I need the second pasuk? You already said Zav Shachat, that it's a drawn out gold, because they would press it out. To make it thinner, they would pull it out and flatten it out. So why do I need a second pasuk? V'chitem Zav Shachat shnitve kachotu. I could have said Zav Shachat, that's drawn out. The word Shachat could mean drawn out, and it also could mean that it's turned into threads. The word if you take the letters of Shachat, you find in there Chut, which means a thread. We're looking for the etymology of the word Shachat. It could mean that it means thread. Tashma, so therefore it says Chet Shachat L'Shainam. No, it's a drawn arrow, which means Shachat means drawn out, not threads. Rava have a badikle gira le Rabbi Yomi bar Tachlifa. Some of us were familiar with this Gemara. That Rava examined the arrow of Rabbi Yomi bar Tachlifa, and he shechted a bird while it was flying.
Wow.
I assume it's referring to Rava, not Rabbi Yomi. He says he takes Rabbi Yomi bar Tachlifa. Isn't this interesting? It has to tell us that Rabbi Yomi bar Tachlifa had an arrow.
Maybe it's showing us also that he brought it to Rava, who was like the Sabbath,
right,
to
check it. And then who doesn't tell me who. It says Rava did it.
Okay, it says V'yaru Rabbi Yomi.
You see, it's unclear. Always, whenever there's whenever anything is unclear, it's always going to be a machlekes. If it's not clear to you, then there's other. That's always how it is. It says in he slaughtered. In he, it's who's the he? Two people, right?
Is that Steinsaltz? Is these Steinsaltz?
Your translation is the Izvahadar, is the Mesifta. The text there is the Steinsaltz page, because that has the Rashi and the thing. They took the best of the best, the best of each. They took the best of each. Okay, now it says V'dil ma'avad chalada. When he shoots an arrow, maybe it enters into the neck and it hides it and it goes under the skin. How does he know it? Okay, the bird drops down, but it says that's not a problem. Gitfi demifrim. The Chazin and Gitfi demifrim were on top of Lamed Aleph. You can see that the feathers were either cut or they're unraveled. They opened up. So you can see that the shechita was done well. That you can look at afterwards. But by kisei, it was a bird.